Hey, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast live from not quite Palm Beach, where the big movers and shakers in the NFL are gathering at the Breakers for the annual league meetings. It is Wulf. It is Zack Baun. We have a lot to discuss. People want to know about your vacation, Zack. We'll save that for the end. I know you don't want to talk about that at the top. We do have news. We talked to Howie Roseman today. Lots of whispers about the Tush Push. Did Howie and Sean McVay get into a fight last night about it? Who knows? We'll find out. Zack, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm thrilled to be back, thrilled to be on the show, thrilled to be at the owners' meetings. So much to discuss.
So much to discuss. Let's start with Howie Roseman. We spoke to Howie Roseman today for the first time since the Eagles did what they did in free agency. Spoke for the first time since the Combine, which was obviously before all of those cost-cutting measures, which he sort of previewed. And so he was able to sort of talk about some of the reasoning behind the big decisions they made. The notable ones, obviously, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the departure of Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, the re-signing of Zack Baun, the extension for Saquon Barkley, the letting Dallas Goedert twist in the wind. No resolution there yet. Lots of stuff to talk about. What if you were writing a headline, Zack? You're going to be writing about this for all the diehards on allphly.com. What would be your top-level takeaway from Howie Roseman?
The Eagles are getting ahead of future decisions. So this isn't a very good headline here. Eagles are getting ahead of
the Eagles are getting ahead of future decisions. This just in. Hear ye.
So there's two big takeaways that I would give you. The first being, and we've framed it this way throughout free agency, but hearing it out of Howie Roseman's mouth, that they've retained a lot of players the past 2 years. They have a lot of young players who are not on long-term deals who are coming up in the next 2-3 years. And their decisions this offseason were about those two factors, were making sure that they're in position to extend the guys they want to extend in future seasons. And within the context of this offseason, and perhaps this is a rationalization, perhaps this is a spin, is that they also factor in some of these extensions that they gave out in previous years too. But you know, it was framed that if you just take C.J. Gardner-Johnson, if C.J. Gardner-Johnson were to stay another year, every dollar they pay him would be a dollar that they wouldn't be able to pay to someone going forward. So it might not be apples for apples, but that's kind of the way it's framed, right? And then the second takeaway,
which is not exactly true, obviously,
but you know, from their budgeting, I suppose. And then then the second thing here is being completely non-committal about Dallas Goedert. And I think this is relevant too, because the big decision looming this offseason is Dallas Goedert. And the way, you know, you and I have the benefit of covering Howie for a decade plus, of having exposure to a lot of these owners meetings, of knowing how to kind of decipher a Howie answer. And if you look at it, Howie's answer about Haason Reddick last year is probably quite comparable to Howie's answer about Dallas Goedert this year. So that's a way of saying that I'm not expecting Dallas Goedert to be back. Howie didn't say that. That's kind of the way it was framed.
And when did the Haason Reddick resolution happen last year?
Literally 2 days after the owners' meeting.
Oh.
Or maybe the day after, depending on when you consider the owners' meeting ending.
Okay. So maybe we're going to get that news this week, you think?
Well, look, I mean, if perhaps Howie Roseman and you know Chris Ballard are in the lobby at the Breakers, and he says, and Howie says, "I so admire your job security," and Ballard says, "I so admire your job security," and Howie says, "If you want to extend that, what do you think about Dallas Goedert?" And then
for Kyle and Grant,
says,
straight up,
what's the compensation? And then Howie says, "Well, let's look at the Carson Wentz precedent from a few years ago." No. I think that I'm not expecting Dallas Goedert to be back. I don't think the Eagles will pay a tight end $14 million given kind of what they've spent elsewhere on the roster. Now, there is a world in which Dallas Goedert restructures the deal. I see in the chat taking the Josh Sweat approach from last season. That could very well be the case. But my guess is that they're not planning on Goedert being back.
Explain the Josh Sweat approach, essentially meaning that the Eagles and Dallas Goedert have agreed, in all intents and purposes, that the Eagles are not going to be willing to pay Dallas Goedert what he's making this year because of this cash cutting. Dallas Goedert wants to be paid that amount, and so presumably the Eagles are letting Dallas Goedert see if there is someone who is willing to pay him that amount, and then they can look for a trade potentially. But what are sort of the next steps? How does that all work?
Yeah, so basically you outlined it well, that they let Goddard pursue that. Goddard or his representative comes back and says, look, we're not able to get X, Y, and Z. What's the best price you're willing to pay? And if that price is more than he can find elsewhere, then he signs that with the understanding that he'll be able to hit the open market next offseason. So that's essentially what happened with Josh Sweat. And I'll say it worked out swimmingly for Josh Sweat, right? Like now, I don't know what he was looking for.
Very evocative. Swimming in a pool of sweat. Ooh, yikes.
I don't know what he was looking for in terms of the number last offseason, but I can't imagine he would have gotten more last offseason than he got this March. So it worked out well for Sweat. Maybe Goddard takes that approach. Different age profiles. I would think that Goddard probably wants to be in a situation where he can go somewhere and get paid right now. That's just me speculating. But again, if he doesn't find that, then that changes the calculation.
I think from a big picture standpoint, the framing here is, how do we get back to the Super Bowl? How do we win a third Super Bowl, right? And in their mind, part of the way to make that happen is making sure that some of the bets that they have made on young players over the past 3 drafts hit. Right. And so they have to clear some room for those guys. That's not to say that someone like Sidney Brown is going to be the starting safety or Tyler Steen is going to be the starting right guard, but they want to give those guys chances. Howie has said in the past, he wants to, and then, as you have framed it well, Zach, they want to pay A+ players A+ money, and they don't want to pay B+ players A money. And that's part of the reason that you would let a guy like CJ Gardner-Johnson go. And I asked Howie Roseman about whether this is a Jeffrey Lurie directive to cut cash spending, because you look at it from the outside, there is a they say you can say that every dollar you spend on CJ Gardner-Johnson can't be spent somewhere else. That's not exactly true with the salary cap the way it is, right? And so Howie Roseman is never going to put anything like that on Jeffrey Lurie, but I would be surprised if that is not part of the case here. I mean, I think we can say without Jeffrey saying it himself, and maybe we will ask him about this tomorrow, that there's no doubt that part of this is the budget has changed. Even acknowledging the fact that they have been a top 3 cash spending team, over the past 5 years or whatever it is.
I mean, I'm not going as far as to say it's changed. I'll say that they're certainly budget conscious here, and whether that's because I mean, the reason I'm hesitant here is I don't know what they have earmarked for next season, right? Like if I don't want to say that the budget's changed and then they give Jalen Carter a $40 million contract and Nolan Smith a $20 million contract. And then, but certainly this offseason, that's the way that they're operating here. And actually, I thought your question was really good. And I thought Howie's answer had a line in there that was pretty bold. He said, this is our vision on how to win our 3rd Super Bowl. We have a bunch of young players that we'd like to retain. We have a lot of players in our current roster that we think are at the top of their game. And so we felt like this was the moment where we had to make some tough decisions with some guys that have meant a lot to this team. It was not a directive.
Yeah, I mean, I can get there if you're thinking about, for instance, the arc of Nolan Smith's season last year, a guy who started the year was, 4th in the defensive end rotation and wasn't that great, and then gets a lot better over the course of the season and is awesome. And maybe you can convince yourself that because we have Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata and Jalen Hurts, that this is an opportunity for us to take along some guys who might need a little bit of seasoning and still be one of the better teams in football. And then potentially a guy like, Sidney Brown does get better over the course of the season, or whoever they draft this year. Maybe it's a tight end in the 1st or 2nd round, and that guy, changes the offense a little bit. It is an opportunity for them to get younger while still competing. But I also think it would be ignorant to pretend as if the actual cash is not a factor.
Yeah, no, I mean, you are
Of
right.
course.
Like
Yeah.
that's pretty clear here. I also think that when you talk about the evolution of Howie, one thing that jumped out when he was speaking about Zack Baun and Saquon Barkley, and this goes to what we were speaking about a moment ago, that uh, I think Howie's approach is like star players, A plus players, because I'm not sure that even if they had the cap space, they would have paid Milton Williams $26 million a year, because I don't think they viewed Milton Williams as a $26 million a year player, even though that's a more premium position. But Howie said, for instance, I'm just looking at my notes here regarding Saquon Barkley and Zack Baun, and I thought it was a fairly telling quote that he said, we say running back or linebacker, and traditionally we haven't done that. I mean, these are difference making players. These are guys who are some of the best players on their side of the ball in the league, and those guys are impossible to replace. So I think there's a delineation.
And
Now,
that is
obviously,
your framing of A plus guys. Like that is
yes,
that's what he's saying.
exactly.
Yes.
So that there's difference making players who you're going to spend on, and then your guys who are B players, you're not going to pay B players A money, even if they play A positions, if that makes sense. Now, I do think that, they might have, if these weren't humans, right? If these were just numbers on a spreadsheet or players in a video game, maybe they would have been more aggressive
Your
during
dream.
during the season in trying to. And this is actually a question you asked about Zack Baun and trying to extend Baun or trying to extend Williams, right? But there's a lot of dynamics at play here, and this is something you were on going back to when they didn't give extensions out 2 years ago. They're very mindful of the human dynamics here. Is that if you prioritize one player during the season and you don't prioritize another player during the season, then that player you didn't prioritize essentially views himself as like an independent contractor. Like, what am I playing for? Even though they're all essentially independent contractors.
Yeah, I do think the situation was a little different 2 years ago because it happened to be that they had guys at like each position group. Remember, like
Sure.
TJ Edwards and Kaiser White,
And
CJ
yeah,
Gardner-Johnson and Marcus Epps, which is I think a
yep,
little bit more delicate than it might have been this season. I still think that like going back to last offseason, I would imagine they tried to extend Milton Williams and Milton maybe figured he was so close to free agency that it wasn't, he wanted to find out what his number was. That's one where I think they might still regret it a little bit because I don't imagine that 26 was the number, a year ago at this time. But those, I think they realized early on that
yeah.
Zack Baun was an A player for them and that they were going to prioritize bringing him back. And then that means, given the roster construction that they have had for so long, if you're allocating that much money to linebacker, you do have to borrow from somewhere else.
You're right. And in terms of borrowing from somewhere else, the other big takeaway here is they're going to let their young guys play. And Howie has been on record saying this. He was on record last combine. He was on record this combine. He even said at the combine a few weeks ago, like, it's going to be even more pronounced. He didn't use the word pronounced. It's going to be even more of the case. But in the example of CJ Gardner-Johnson, for instance, now Sidney Brown's not guaranteed a job, but they don't want Sidney Brown to essentially be blocked, right? And I think there are spots where they don't want some of these guys to be blocked. They want some of these young guys to play, and it's what we talked about at corner with Keely Ringo, at guard with Tyler Steen, where they're going to have competition, right? Like, Sidney Brown is not going to be unimpeded for that job, whether it's a draft pick, whether it's a bargain free agent, whether it's a post draft free agent. But I don't think they're going to sign someone or draft someone who is like day one definitely ahead of Sidney Brown. And I think there's multiple spots on the field where they're going to want some of these draft picks to play. I think the way they see it is they have 8 guys from the past few drafts who are going to be competing for spots in the starting lineup. And I think that's the big deal here is, like, they want these young guys to play, and it all goes back. Now, we can say it goes back to the cash spending, but it goes back, from my perspective, to the distribution, to how they're distributing resources now. And I've been on this storyline for a year now, that they are taking away that middle class of player. and they will something. And I think Howie said this today, like, the amount of guys that they have making 15 million plus, right? And it's probably disproportional to the rest of the league. And that was on the record where he said that, right? And then there are, like, I don't know about it proportional to the rest of the league, but that they have a high volume of players making 15 million plus. And the flip side to that is you need some guys on cost controlled rookie deals. And so those are going to be draft picks.
Let me do an impromptu exercise with you. This is going to be difficult because we're going to rank 7 different things. But having talked to Howie today, having a sense of the roster, I want you to rank how comfortable you think Howie is with the current state of 7 different positions heading.
Oh, I like this.
Okay, so you've got.
Wait, I'm ranking the positions, or I'm
in order. In order.
Okay.
I will read them off to you.
Right.
You can think about it. So on offense, there are 2. There's right guard, or you can make it offensive line as a whole if you want, and there's tight end, and then you've got every position on defense. You've got defensive tackle. You got to replace Milton Williams. You've got edge. You got to replace Josh Sweat. You got linebacker. Who's going to start next to Zack Baun? You've got cornerback. How do we feel about Keely Ringo? And you've got safety. Is Sidney Brown, ready for prime time? So those 7 things. How comfortable do you think Howie is heading into week 1? Essentially, how willing would he be to enter training camp tomorrow as is?
Yeah. So number 1 is defensive tackle, I would say, and that might seem counterintuitive because we've talked about them taking a D tackle in the first round. I think that has a lot to do with value and the prior, the class itself, importance of that position.
I'm glad you brought that up, Zach, because today is an exciting day for the diehards. The Eagles 100 is up on allphly.com. Good chance to become a diehard. You know all about Fran Duffy's draft guide. Well, guess what? We've tweaked it a little bit to have it be specific to the Eagles. And so what we did here, we ranked the top 100 prospects for the Eagles. We took out the Cam Wards, the Shador Sanderses, the Will Campbells, guys who have no chance of getting to the Eagles. Realistic targets for the Eagles. How might they stack their board realistically? And you can also go on there and sort through players who have gone for top 30 visits and stuff like that. So you get all of Fran Duffy's write-up. You get a little bit of an extra write-up from an Eagles perspective. Good chance to check that out on allphly.com.
Well said. And credit to Bo. Bo really carried the load with that.
You've got defensive tackle at the top. I think I agree with you, but go ahead, finish.
And so 2 points here. And Professor Selman pointed this out, that if you just look late in the season, the amount of playing snaps, the amount of playing time that Moro Ojima was getting, it was like comparable to Milton Williams, right, late in the year, or pretty close. And so I look, Milton Williams is a terrific player. I'm not going to besmirch Milton Williams by any means. $26 million player a year, he earned it.
I might smooch Milton Williams,
but I don't know if the Eagles consider that as much as a drop off as the salary might indicate, going from Milton Williams to Moro Ojima.
Right.
Whether they are clouded by the investment or not, I still think they are expecting more from Jordan Davis. I think they are expecting Jordan Davis to reach another level. Whether that happens, I can't tell you that's going to happen. And then obviously Jalen Carter is a premium player in the NFL. So I think they feel comfortable with those 3 guys. And then there's obviously Thomas Booker. I imagine they add, but if they have to play with those 3 guys, I think they'd be comfortable with that.
Okay.
My next one here, I'll probably say, edge. I don't feel strongly about that, but Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt, I know they like those 2 guys.
They've done some papering, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they took 2 dart throws here. Josh Uche. I asked Howie about Josh Uche. He was tight on time. He didn't give much. He spoke to Dave Spadaro, I guess, before he came down here to Florida, and he said that he's someone that they tried signing last year. That would have helped, of course, in Quackatology a year ago when we were high on Josh Uche. And then they tried trading for him this past, or they considered trading for him this past season. And then Azeez Ojulari, someone who, we both obviously thought highly of, and then they could still add to that position. And of course, Bryce Huff is still a $17 million a year player for them, right? My next one here, actually, no, over edge, I would go corner. Because
I would have done corner
I think,
too,
I'll go corner over edge. Now that I think about it, Keeley, and the way he was talking about Adoree Jackson, he spoke about Adoree like Adoree is not shot. Like he still thinks Adoree might,
I would
or
hope not.
the way he was, or not like not finished. He talked about how twitched up Adoree is, and he said that he's someone who feels he hasn't played his best ball. Like if you say that in the context of Kenyon Green, I understand it. Adoree Jackson's had 8 years.
Yeah, he was
right,
talking about him like he was a young guy.
Yeah, he's had like 8 years to play his best ball. That hasn't happened. I don't know if it's going to, but obviously Keeley Ringo is still there. So yeah, so and then top of the depth chart with Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper the Gene, you feel strongly about that.
Right,
So
you've
then
got
edge
defensive
3,
tackle 1, cornerback 2, edge 3. Find out how the rest of Zach's rankings for those positions pans out, flushes out. I don't know. Find out after the break. And I will be here to tell you about our friends at TrueMark. It's almost spring, and that means it's time to spring into savings. If you have financial goals, whether it's buying a house, taking that dream vacation, building your emergency fund, or just making sure you make all that little bit extra money from owning your Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles team, and it means cutting players or trading them, well, TrueMark Financial Credit Union has the perfect savings account for you. TrueMark Financial offers high-rate certificates and money market accounts to help your money grow faster and work harder for you. Visit TrueMark.com, that's TrueMark.com, for rates and to learn more. TrueMark Financial, federally insured by the NCUA, equal opportunity lender. Rates are subject to change.
Okay. Real quick here. I apologize.
You know what? That's my fault.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No problem.
And you were supposed to do
Yeah.
TrueMark.
I will.
You can do Bet365.
No problem. That's what I was pausing.
I short circuited.
No problem. I was afraid I had the wrong day up. But I want to tell everyone about Bet365 because look, this is the time of year when you got baseball season going on. You got NCAA tournament wrapping up. You got NBA playoffs approaching. The Eagles and the NFL is not playing. So, I have a chance to kind of dabble in some of these other sports. And when I mean dabble, maybe I'm going to Bet365 where whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. They have 90 million users worldwide. They live stream 780,000 events each year. They have early payout offers across NBA and NHL. They pioneer live in-game betting. Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. Baseball among them. It's opening day, right? So make sure you get those bets in. If you're watching a ball game, it's fun to bet as the game's going on. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use the code PHLY, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get that $150 in bonus bets. Again, win or lose. Breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get, as I said, $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use the code PHLY365. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, total, players, props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older or physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Zach, people want to know what's going on in your fantasy basketball league.
Oh, man. Tough one last night. I was a Cinderella story, and I was playing the number 1 seed. If you are familiar with the rights to Ricky Sanchez, I'm willing to say the name of that podcast. Mike has a great team. He was the number 1 seed, and I'm like the little engine that could. Okay, I traded Luka earlier this year. Because his contract, I guess me and Nico Harrison, but mine was founded, right? I traded
you just
Luka.
Didn't want a beer drinker on your team.
No. I wasn't going to be able to protect him next year. And so at the deadline, I was trying to get something for him. I got a first-round pick next year, which is hard to get in our league. And my team seemed down in the dumps. But then through some strategic signings, and the benefit of a bunch of NBA teams tanking late in the year, and so you can pick up a guy like Quentin Grimes, and he averages 30 points, and I was rolling, man, and so I win my first playoff matchup, and now here I am, Cinderella in the semifinals, and I'm picking up AJ Johnson on a back-to-back with Washington and Campaign on a back-to-back with the Knicks, and trying to do all these different maneuvers. And I had puncher's
It's head-to-head
chance.
categories?
It's head-to-head, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
head-to-head categories. Had a puncher's chance going into last night, right? Like I had 7 guys playing. He had 3 guys playing. And when I got on my flight in the morning, he had not used his transactions because he has like players you don't want to cut, right? There's only 5 transactions a week in this league. I was taxiing through. And so I was like, you know what? I can make up ground in this category, in that category, in that category. And then at dinner last night, still hasn't added somebody. And by the time I get back to dinner, he added 3 guys in the night games. He cut like rosterable players because I think he saw that I was coming. And then Quentin Grimes did not. And Quentin Grimes did not play. The Sixers rested Quentin Grimes, and so I lost 5-3. And man, that was
Does
a tough
tie
one
just go to the higher seed? Would he have won a 4-4 tie? Okay.
I would not. He would have won a 4-4 tie, but there were 2 categories, points and rebounds, where I could have taken it if not for those transactions.
If Grimes had played, would you? Was it that close?
If Grimes had played, I don't think I would have put it. If he didn't add, he added Bona and he added Oscar Robinson. Not Oscar Robertson, Oscar Robinson. And so, look, I got to give him credit. He was the better team. He deserved the win. But I did text Gonzo yesterday, John, I got to fight. I got a puncher's chance here. And it did not happen.
Oh, well, you put up a good effort.
I put up a good effort. And now,
so who does he play in the finals?
Yeah. I think he plays legs. I'm not sure. I got to look it up. I was pretty busy this morning. I didn't.
I feel like around the PHLY offices, I feel like you don't do enough lording over Bodner that you have a better team than him.
He's not in the league anymore.
Oh,
yeah. He's no longer in the league. Otherwise, I love talking fantasy hoops, fantasy baseball. It's a passion of mine.
All right. So you finished off talking about corner, and before we get back to these rankings, we have a super chat from John who says, "Do you think the Eagles will sign Asante Samuel Jr. after the draft, Zach?"
I got to see how the draft shakes out, right? Like last year, the Eagles don't sign Mekhi Becton if they drafted an offensive lineman in the first 3 rounds, probably, right? Now, I don't know if the Eagles are going to draft a corner early or not, and I don't know if they feel they need to push it at all in terms of drafting a corner, but I think after the draft, a lot of that depends on what they do with their picks. What are you doing?
Ooh, baby. I'm doing push it.
Oh, okay.
Push it real good. Okay. Linebacker, safety, tight end, right guard are the 4 positions you have left. What is next up in how he feels good about it? Doesn't need to change it necessarily.
I say this reluctantly, but probably linebacker because they have a blue chip guy there in Baun. Dean's coming back at some point. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is a 5th round pick, and I think that's a position where you can find somebody. There's whether it's in the draft or someone lingering on the market. I think you can find a second linebacker. Now that they have their first linebacker, I think they're okay.
Yeah, I think this depends on the way that you would frame the question. Like I think there's no chance that the Eagles will go into training camp without having added anybody at linebacker. They're obviously not done there, but I also don't think that Howie is as concerned about it as he is.
Exactly. Yeah. Now maybe Vic Fangio is, but Howie, I don't think Howie's.
There will be veterans they can sign. There will be undrafted free agents they can add to compete, and they could draft a day 3 guy. But we'll see.
Yeah, Howie's like, Vic, I just paid more money into a linebacker than any linebacker in my career. So you got your guy. right? Then next year I'll say right guard, because you have Jeff Stoutland. Tyler Steen's entering year 3. Needs to be more consistent. Needs to take a step. Kenyon Green's an upside guy. I don't think that they view it just like you go to Stoutland University and you become a $10 million a year player. But I think that they viewed Kenyon Green as a first-round pick a few years ago. I think Howie said that today, that they weren't surprised he went on the first round. They did a lot of work on him.
He was like 16th overall. Of course, they weren't surprised he was a first-round pick.
So 15, yeah. So I think that they could probably get by at right guard. You're playing between Cam Jurgens and Lane Johnson.
Okay, I agree with you. Tight end or safety next?
Probably safety.
I would go safety at the bottom, but we're splitting.
I was going to go tight end at the bottom because they're not going to keep Goddard, and you need to bring in somebody, and you're not going to sell me on. Look, he talked about how Kylan Granson reminds him of Trey Burton. I like Trey Burton. Trey Burton's not, you're not building your offense around Trey Burton at tight end. And then similarly, they talked about how Harrison Bryant's developed more as a blocker than they evaluated him out of FAU. So Howie and I were on the same wavelength there, in the sense that when the Eagles signed Bryant, I was like, not much of a blocker, because I was thinking of him coming out of FAU, right?
And then he has Raiders film.
I hadn't grinded that Raider film yet. And then, of course, Grant Calcaterra is someone who they like, but I think when you just look at that position, they need more there. And obviously they need more at safety, but you're returning your starter in Reed Blankenship, and Sidney Brown, someone who should take another step. I could be wrong there, but I'm going tight end at the bottom of this list.
Okay. Yeah, I would have just said, I would have had it. Again, it sort of depends on the framing. Like I don't think that they're as concerned about it, because I feel like they think they will get someone in the draft potentially. But safety, I feel like they are not ready. They're not going to line up tomorrow with Reed, Sidney Brown, and Tristan McCollum as their top 3 at safety.
Agree with you there.
Okay. Anything else from Howie Roseman that is worth getting into? I know you're going to write about it more on allphly.com.
Yeah. Just speaking about some of the incoming players, I try to do rapid fire this time of year, like I say. And
we were playing a little defense because we'd already done it on PhiladelphiaEagles.com.
Yes. Yeah. Well, good point. So I mentioned Kenyon Green. He said they did a lot of work on him.
Wait a second. Speaking about playing defense, whatever happened to your actual basketball league?
We lost in the playoffs. I did not play.
Were you there, or was it when you were on vacation?
Yeah, no, it was the Monday before I left, and
I just never asked you about it. My fault. That's a bad job by me.
No. There's nothing to ask. I let my team down this year. I got to decide honestly if I'm going to play next year or not, because I just miss a lot of time from the playoffs. If they go to, you miss the combine week, I missed the Super Bowl week. They have Monday night games, and it's not fair to my team. Like, not that I'm good, but just from like a substitution perspective, if I miss 5 games a year, right?
So you're upfront about that, though, right?
Well, I was on a different team this year, so I don't know if my captain knew. But look, it's not like I have a major material effect in us winning or losing.
Okay. Speaking of you being said, people did want to know what your reaction was when you saw the Matt Pryor news come across the wire while you were on vacation.
I was like, good scoop by McClain. And that sounds like good scoop by McClain. Is that what people are referring to?
No, just like, were you upset that you weren't? Yeah.
Why was I upset? Oh, that I wasn't. Well,
you weren't around to be reporting it.
Well, more the Kendall Lamb one.
Really?
I wanted to be more. Yeah, more because I know about Pryor. Like, I covered him. I can give you, 60 seconds on Pryor. I probably wasn't in position to give you 60 seconds on Lamb, and so usually I like to just send a text or two out, say like, all right, give me some intel on this guy. And I couldn't really do that when I was away. So,
fortunately, the world kept spinning.
The world did keep spinning. That is for sure. And we made that clear to me.
All right. What else did you have from Howie to discuss?
I think like Howie didn't say this, but just in kind of reading between the lines, um, if you're looking for a reason for optimism about this team right now, or at least the way they view it, I think the way they look at it is there's a lot of attention paid to the guys who've left and not enough attention paid to the guys who are here. And I think they view it like, yeah, I mean, there's this fixation on you lost CJ Gardner-Johnson, you lost Josh Sweat, you lost Milton Williams. And internally, my guess is they're thinking they have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, Lane Johnson. And I said this on Anthony's show a few weeks ago, and like I stand by it. And I think that's how they think about it. That this is still like perhaps the most talented team in the league, or one of the most talented teams in the league, even with the players who are gone. And I think that they're going to be aggressive in moving picks around. And Howie said this on the record today in terms of he was asked about the currency of these draft picks, and he's like, yeah, they can always move them for players, right? So from their perspective, I don't think they are finished. Certainly, this is not a year when they went out and it was headlined by free agent signings like last year. And Howie was upfront about this, but I don't think there is this. I don't think there's concern about the roster internally. I think any concern about the roster would just be natural. A lot of things, and we talked about this. A lot of things went their way last year from a health perspective. They got like the best case scenario performance, I assume, from Saquon Barkley, from Zack Baun, from a number of other players, and it's just you can't count on that, right? Happening every single season. Saquon hasn't been as healthy as he was last year in his previous stops. Like there's a lot of variables, but I don't think they look at their roster inside that building right now and they're like, oh God, this is the year where we're taking a step back. I don't think they view it that way.
Yeah, and if you think about the decision making of turning the roster over to the young guys, they're not in the business of wasting prime years of AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley, right? Like those guys are only going to be elite for so long. They're not gonna throw those years away. They're trying to figure out a way to do it a little bit differently.
Sure, you're right, and so I think that clearly there was a message how he was trying to convey. It was a message that we've kind of put in our words. I think our kind of spin on it during the past few weeks. But hearing him come out of his mouth about, I don't want to say like a reset financially, but kind of like a hold on financially here because they're expecting to pay a lot next season.
Gotcha. Before we get to the next ad read, Zach, why don't you sort of set the scene for people? What is the owners' meetings like right now? What's going on at the Breakers? Give us the smells. Give us the tastes.
Well, the smells. It's a good smelling. Like the bathroom soap there is good, right? So you always that's a good indication of.
Yeah, but they
nice
moved
place.
the coaches' meetings, the coaches' breakfasts from like a nice part of the hotel to a different tented area, trying to keep the unwashed media hordes, separated from the elites who are staying at the Breakers, and so that is beginning to take on a bit of a musty smell.
Although I will say, typically I would have your, I would share your sentiment there. Of all my owners' meetings, I've only covered one at the Breakers before this, and it was the worst coaches' breakfast because don't you remember you weren't at the table with them; they were on those risers in that room. So
it was at least spread out.
Yeah, so at least they were sitting down, right? So
that
it's
was,
not
of
like
course,
a press
the
conference.
famous coaches' breakfast when about 2 weeks before the Eagles traded for AJ Brown, Nick Sirianni was explaining to us that the offense was going to have to get more touches for Quez Watkins.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. That was the big sentiment. Is that really they have Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert here, so they don't need that a wide receiver, even though Calvin Ridley they were interested in, and now in Robinson they were interested in. Yeah. So basically this is. I've said this in the past. I hope we have new viewers and new listeners. So I'll say it again. This is my favorite event on the NFL calendar, bar none.
You love to hobnob with the elites. What's it like on that yacht, Mr. Rich Man?
No, I like it because it's efficient. It's efficient. You're here for 2-3 days. You're getting access, right? You're definitely getting the head coach. It used to be an hour, now it's a half hour, unfortunately. The Eagles, Howie Roseman speaks, Jeffrey Lurie speaks, right? So you can plan that. You're not like there used to be a time where I was chasing this owner from hallway to hallway, right? At least that's coming. It's a relaxed atmosphere, right? Number two. Number three, there's substantive things to talk about. I say the combine from a media perspective, combine's great from a relationship perspective. It's overrated from a media perspective because nothing has happened yet. They're not going to tell you anything. Like they purposely go up there and obfuscate, right? Whereas here, they can be a little more substantive because there are things that have happened. You have a better sense of what your roster is post free agency. So I like that, and I just find that I have better conversations with people, sitting around, whether it's in a hotel lobby than in a crowded bar where you're kind of trying to maneuver for space, right? So this is more conducive for my conversation and my relationship building. I find, and then, yeah, and it's just efficient. I always leave these events like kicking myself, things I wish I did better, but I feel as if that happens less often at the owners' meetings than at the combine.
Interesting.
But to set the scene for you, it's every NFL owner, not every NFL owner / like operating decision maker. Like Paul Allen used to not come to this, right? But like the person making the decisions in Seattle did. Every GM is here. Every head coach is here. Now they come with their families, but there's what you don't have, and then the team presidents and some of the people from the business side. What you don't have is like the scouts aren't here, assistants aren't here. So it's a different. It's different for the relationship building part of it, but it is a much more relaxed environment relative to some of the other events, Senior Bowl, owners, or I'm sorry, and the combine.
Yeah,
but I would like it if we were able to, like, from a logistic perspective, just like stay where they stay or
we
closer
would
to where
never
they stay.
let you do that.
No, there was one, the owners meetings in Orlando. The Ritz-Carlton's connected to another hotel where they had media. They used to have advertised media rates. They no longer have that. But that was great because you can just go to your room and back down. Here you're staying off site, off premises, and yeah, it's becoming more and more detached from when it used to be that way.
And of course, tonight is the big bash when they intermingle, the slobs and the billionaires together.
I view this as like the Bo Wulf night. You kill it here.
Please.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, you're very good in that setting. You give you a drink in hand, and yeah, you're enjoying yourself.
I mean, not on the inside.
Well, you can't tell.
All right, let's take a quick break, come back, and we got to get to all of the rumors around tomorrow's vote for whether the NFL is going to ban the pushing of that tush. So we were out in between availabilities earlier, and as I was walking down the hall at the Breakers, I overheard and witnessed this exchange where there was one guy sort of accosting one of the other general managers. He's like, "Hey, I'll give you money if you vote against the Tush Push. We got to get rid of this thing. We got to stop the Eagles right where they are. And my name is Ray." Interestingly, that is not the Shady Ray that we're talking about here today. Instead, we're talking about our friends at Shady Rays.
You got
Shady
props.
Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their sunglasses have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. With so many colors available, you'll find a perfect pair that's perfect for you. If your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by their lost or broken replacement program. And if you don't love your shades, you can exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. PHLY viewers and listeners, go to shadyrays.com and save 35% off polarized sunglasses with code PHLY. Over 300,000 people have rated Shady Rays 5 stars, so use code PHLY today at shadyrays.com.
If you have an issue in your house, if you have a leaky pipe, an air conditioning issue, a faucet you say you fixed last fall, maybe your ice maker is not working, Ace Hardware Home Services is around the block with everything you need to fix it, including the person doing the fixing. They're not just the helpful hardware folks, they're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. It's not cold anymore, but you're going to want that air conditioning, right? Because air conditioning is the type of thing that you don't recognize how important it is until it's not working, right? And if it's not working, you feel it, and you want to call Ace Hardware Home Services. They're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love from the store now to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com. Get you started on your next project.
Zach, you gave me a sandwich recommendation today. This is a drink from that place.
Yeah, tell me, what'd you think? Did you get the carpaccio?
Got the carpaccio with the fried onions and the balsamic.
Crispy.
Very good. Close to perfect. Not quite perfect.
Okay. All right.
But very good. Very good. It wasn't evenly spread enough. There were bites that were too all carpaccio and not enough. Like you need the crunch with it. And I thought maybe actually, interestingly, a little less of the carpaccio would have gone a long way. There were some bites that were interesting. You don't want too much carpaccio in a bite, but fantastic sandwich. I'm going to go back tomorrow for a different sandwich to try one out. It was good. Great recommendation.
I appreciate that. I take my food recommendations seriously. I would not vouch for something if I didn't feel strongly about it, and I feel very strongly about the sandwich spot.
It was that was like an A/A- sandwich, I would say.
That's high praise. An A. Okay, that's like fantastic. A Saquon Barkley sandwich.
Yeah, I would get it again. I mean, Saquon was an A+. Don't pull a Daniz on me now.
Fair enough.
Okay. True or false? Howie Roseman and Sean McDermott and Sean McVay and John Ferrari got into a tag team wrestling match last night at the Breakers.
Oh, tag team wrestling match.
One of them broke a bottle and threatened to shove it in the other one's neck, and the other one threw a chair. Like, was this a steel cage match? Barbed wire? What do we got going on?
I can't tell you. First off, shout out to our former colleague Kaylin Kaler. She does a great job covering the league. She gets the stories.
2 weeks in a row now, we've name dropped Kaylin.
That people wish they got, and she gets it. So good work by Kaylin. You can read her work at ESPN.com documenting what occurred. And now this is a more divisive issue than it should be from my perspective. But Sean McDermott is someone who's on the competition committee who says that he wants this banned, citing player safety, health and player safety. Even though, from my understanding, there's not data that suggests this is an issue. I think it's more anecdotal than it is like quantitative here or empirical.
Point they're saying the point is like the push makes them susceptible to a neck injury. But yes, that has not happened.
Yes. And just it's been there's different coaches who have different perspectives on this. I was at Andy Reid's table today, and Andy Reid was like, he's going to defer to his medical staff And I think him saying that's probably meaning that they're going to vote against this, right? And then, like Kevin Stefanski's like, I don't want it overturned. There you go, Nick. Nick said that Steichen and Gannon and Moore got their jobs because of this play. That's what he told Mike Garafolo.
Steichen said today that he's for the play.
Yeah. So this is going to come down to vote tomorrow.
How does it work? They need 24 votes in order for it to pass.
Yeah, 2/3. And Kalen says that there's growing support that this is going to pass. So we'll see. This is something that I'm curious to see. It's obviously it's going to be a big story tomorrow. The Eagles have been on record for a period of time here stating that like it's a play of skill and that it's kind of an insult to them to suggest that it's not a football play. Like they practice it, they strategize with it. I don't think aesthetically it might be like the most pleasing play to watch, but I don't think it's not a football play. Yeah, it's a football play. It's just they're not going to run it 90 times a game, and not every team's effective at it. So I'm curious to see.
Yeah, my point remains the same, that I could understand banning pushing offensive players who have the ball. That used to be the case. Like that would make sense to me. But to single out this one specific play, this very specific use case, and the way that it is written, which would be very hard to litigate, seems very silly to me for a play that is not used that often.
Yeah, I do. I disagree.
And the play
with the
that frankly doesn't really have that great of an effect on the outcome of a game, because you're talking about like a play that would probably be, if the Eagles convert a tush push 90% of the time, and if they ran a quarterback sneak, they would convert that 75% of the time. And we're talking about like one play that it's just one first down. It's not a play that's changing win probability in any significant manner.
Yeah. I agree with you here, but I disagree with the sentiment. My former colleague at the Inquirer, Marcus Hayes, has a column today, and it's a fine column. I just disagree with it, that this is like an anti-Eagles approach here, that if this was a different team having success with the play, they wouldn't be drummed up. I don't think this is anti-Eagles. I just think it's a play that it's polarizing because not every team executes it well. Right. And like I said, aesthetically, it's not what some people consider to be a football play. Now, I don't know what you qualify as a football play. To me, it's a play that happens in a football game that's legal within the context of football. Therefore, it's a football play. But I understand it's not as graceful as a big run or a pass.
I think there is an anti-Eagle sentiment to it, and it doesn't even have to be explicit, because I think part of it is the Eagles are always on TV, and so people are always talking about this play. If it was the Jacksonville Jaguars who were successful at this play, most of the league would be seeing it 2 times a year, right? So I think that's part of it, and I also think it is fair to point out that this was a topic of conversation when the Eagles lost in the Super Bowl. When the Eagles were bad last year, this was not a topic of conversation at the league meetings. They didn't talk about this last year. And then now they won the Super Bowl and it's back in the zeitgeist again. So
it's a good point. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, there has been a groundswell to overturn this going back 3 years. But yeah, the fact that this is a written proposal and it's going to be voted upon tomorrow, it is like the biggest story here at the owners' meetings, which
it's crazy. It is the perfect owners meeting story, because it is like this is Roger Goodell's dream, is there to be something of this little significance to the actual game when there are real other questions to discuss, and this is what is taking up the oxygen, and people feel really strongly one way or the other. It is Roger is very hard about this whole thing. He must be very excited.
It's a great point, Bo, because I mean, I've covered owners meetings where the big stories, it's like Deshaun Watson is, and somebody, the one when we were at Florida a few years ago, like Deshaun Watson was the biggest story. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then, there's
Yeah,
times when
there's going to be a big announcement. The smoke is going to come out of the chimney tomorrow. They're going to say we are officially banning the Tush Push, and then in the very bottom of the press release, they're going to be, oh, by the way, we got rid of the Rooney Rule.
I mean, it's actually look, I don't want to get into like other people's stories before they've written it, but there's a reporter who I really respect, who's working on a story actually of that ilk, and it has to do more with some like legislation national, potential legislation nationally, and how that could affect whether it's symposiums or so like real honest to God stuff here, right? And so I'm at a table where that's being asked, and the coach is like, I don't know about that. But then it's like, what are your thoughts on the Tush Push? And then he answers that question like 5 times, right? So you are absolutely correct that it is a story that the NFL craves, because this is the lead of every. It's like if they ban it, it won't affect anybody's life, right? Like it won't. The Eagles will move on. The Eagles will, like you said, the Eagles will run quarterback sneaks. They'll be successful with those quarterback sneaks from short yardage. They'll be fine. Right?
I do think it adds to the myth, like the legend of that Eagles team. It makes them it gives them a better legacy if they won the Super Bowl, one of the best teams of all time, and the league had to change the rules to try to stop them, even though it didn't really have that much of a material effect on them winning the Super Bowl.
You're right. But it is like, and it's something I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. Like, should I have a stronger opinion on this? Like, should I be doing more about this? But to me, it's an eventuality, right? Like, it's going to be voted upon. And then B, I've been pretty clear. I think it's a football play, but I don't, this isn't something that like I'm up in arms about, right? And there's so many other things that I think about more so than the brotherly shove, or however you want to frame it. But it is every table you went to today. It's every coach is being asked about it. And I actually stutter here because, like, we talked to Nick Sirianni tomorrow. We have 30 minutes. There's like real substantive things I want to ask Nick Sirianni. I already know what Nick's going to say. I can send you Nick's answer about the quarterbacks. Like he's been on record multiple times about this, but I respect everyone has a job to do, right? And there's going to be people who come to the table. And so we're going to get like 3 questions in about their safety situation or their right guard situation, or whether Cooper Jean's playing the slide or the outside, or about how their offseason is going to be different this year coming off the Super Bowl. Like there's real like substantive things I want to ask Nick tomorrow, but invariably it's going to be about the brotherly shove.
A very good question from our benefactor CDP, who I believe I saw here at the Breakers. He's hobnobbing with the billionaires. That's the kind of man that he is. He says Jalen Hurts donates air conditioning to schools for every touchdown. Is this Tush Push ban an attempt to hurt the Philadelphia youth so they won't realize that their elders have failed them?
I
think CDP is onto something.
Yeah, I give Jalen Hurts credit for doing this, and I wish this wasn't a problem in Philadelphia public schools. I've spoken to Philadelphia public school student about this, and it's like a real honest to God problem, especially in September, and not as much, but you get some September days and then a little bit of June, but no air conditioning. Like I said in the read, Brace Hardware, when you don't have AC, you feel it, and so. No, it's good that Jalen does that. And but if they do ban this, there'll be fewer donations. I hope the other owners step up. I hope the other owners who ban this will step up and contribute in Jalen's stead.
Good point from Smitty, who says, speaking of the youth, it is important to note that Keely Ringo, of course, is very young, so much so that he's actually a year younger than Quinyon Mitchell, who entered the league a year after he did. For more on that, you can check us out at Overtime. Overtime, of course, one of the rule proposals for tomorrow.
Yep, correct.
There you go. Any other stories from the vacation that you'd like to share, Zach? People are very
stories from the vacation. Yeah, I had a great my kids had a great time. My wife had a good I had a great time. We went on a cruise. There was like 30 plus um, from my family, cousins and grandparents. Like there were a lot of kids. There were 16 kids, and they loved this, right? And you're on a ship with like 6,000 people. It's basically like a city in the water, right? And so yeah, I wouldn't call it like a relaxing getaway per se, but it
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
great time
How do you do with
with
cruise? How
family.
do you do with cruise life?
Yeah, honestly, I went on a cruise when I was younger. I haven't been on in a long time. So I'll tell you what, it's a lot different when you're a parent. But my
Mm.
son was obsessed with this and loved it, and was
Was
yeah.
most of the time spent on the boat, or were there lots of
There were three.
landing and
There were three
excursion?
port. Yeah, there were three ports. So you're there for 7 days. There are three ports, and so there was 3 full days on the ship, and then 3 days at a port. So like half and half. But the good thing is it's self-contained, right? So the days when you're at the ship, there's more autonomy for the kids than maybe it would be if
Mm.
you were, down the shore or in Florida or something like that. Um, and yeah, there's so much for the kids to do. It was great for the kids. I caught up on all the, or I was keeping up with all the PHLY Eagles shows, but I made a vow to myself that I didn't want to be that person who is like sending notes about the shows when he's not there. I thought
Mm.
that's like the person looking over your shoulder. Like I didn't think that was appropriate. So I listened as a viewer, and then I'll say this, because it came up on Anthony's show a few weeks ago, that I am working on a book right now. I haven't said that on our show, but I'll have more to
Wait a
say
second. You
when the
gave that
pub.
scoop to Anthony?
No, it was so you'll actually laugh about this. Is that we were talking off air one day. I was talking with you, and someone was like, "What are you doing this weekend?" And I was like, well, my family's out of town. I'll be writing a book. And then I was on Anthony's show that
I've
Monday, and it's
heard.
like, so you're writing so how would the writing go this
Oh,
weekend?
that's
You're
funny.
writing a book, and I was like, I'm going to let the publisher announce it, right? And I'm going to let the publisher announce it and all of that. Like I've been hinting at that, but I have a deadline like approaching, and I couldn't take 7 days away from writing because I just wouldn't get the words that I needed to. So um, I was probably I was probably the only person who goes on a cruise to write a book. But I was doing it morning and night when the kids were sleeping, and it actually happened to be a fairly peaceful setting for writing a book. But I made a lot of progress there, and I'll have more information on that when the publisher announces it.
Can you confirm or deny that it is an unauthorized biography of Malcolm Gladwell?
I can deny that. Um, but Malcolm Gladwell is going to be at the Philadelphia Speaker Series next year. That just got
Mm.
announced last week. So if you are an ardent viewer of the show, you know that I am an ardent subscriber to the Philadelphia Speaker Series. I'm excited. There's some really good speakers. Anthony Fauci's coming next year. I'm excited to hear him. And then Malcolm
Oh,
Gladwell's on the. But
continue to get political without any
no,
push at all.
so I'm going to push back on that. I don't believe that's political. I believe that's humanitarian. Um,
Doesn't matter whether you believe it or not.
but that's me saying it, right? But yeah. So then Doris Kearns Goodwin is on that list. I'm excited for that. I mean, she's one of the great presidential scholars of our era, um, of our lifetime, I should say. So, but yeah, Malcolm Gladwell.
You and
Hopefully,
TKG in the same era.
yeah,
You
of
got
our
same draft
lifetime.
class?
Of, of our lifetime. So, anyways, there's some good speakers coming up.
Is the
Malcolm
book
Gladwell among
the
them.
story of the little running back who could, the story of a young Will Shipley who became the Eagles' highest drafted running back in Howie Roseman's tenure?
Will Shipley is in the book. And there is a sentence in there about the biggest investment they've made in a running back since Miles Sanders.
Oh gosh, there goes my pre-order.
That might be edited out though. So like economy of words.
One can hope. One can hope. People want to know if it was a good food ship.
I mean, look, it was plentiful. The food, it was plentiful. It was, yeah. I mean, if you like buffets, they have everything you could want there. Everything you could want. My kids loved it. Yeah, it's plentiful. Like when you're feeding 6,000 people, you're not getting like Vernick cuisine, right? But you are getting, it was good. Yeah, it was God. I can't complain at all. I had a wonderful week with my family, with my kids loved it. I spent so seeing, so I'm yeah, I had a wonderful week. Yeah, food was good. The ship was amazing. Ship was amazing. Like the technology on ships these days.
Oh, gosh.
And no, I mean, I'm in the middle of the ocean. I'm watching the PHLY Eagle show. It's awesome.
Did you maintain the splitting up of duties where Emily kept them fed and you went on the water slides?
Actually, so they had, if you're a longtime viewer, you know this. I'm from a big family, right? And so I'm one of 6 kids. 4 of us have kids. Then I was with my cousins, so my kids' second cousins. There's just a lot of kids. So, anyways, my oldest nephews are 15 and 12, and they took Reed on the cruises. Oh, I'm sorry.
So you didn't have to do any parenting at all.
Water slides. And so Reed was on the water slides, and Reed was like, I was like, "Do you want me to take?" He's like, "No, I want to go with my cousins." Right. And so, so that was now I was. I was happy for him, right? But we went to a water park one day, and there was a lazy river. They actually called it an action river, and
a what
I
river?
did that with an action river, because they don't want to call it lazy. They call it an action river, like you're in a float. So I took I took the younger, there's like different age groups, and so Sloan, my daughter Sloan, who's 6 years old, and so there's a number of girls who are like 5, 6 in that range, and I took them on the lazy river, on the action river. I was kind of doing that throughout most of the day.
Okay, so you got it in,
and then we did a lot of just like different there's like a basketball court there, and Reed was playing basketball, and so I had to watch him there. So, but it was cool. It was an awesome.
You were not having to intermingle too much with the other cruisers. I imagine you were spending you didn't have those things where at dinner you're mixed with different people, right? You were
because we're such a big family. Yeah, we're such a big family. At the blackjack table, there was some conversation with some other cruisers, but that's the extent of it.
Oh, did you get recognized?
I did, but this is humbling. I had 2 different people who came up to me who they were huge fans of mine at the Inquirer. I haven't written for the Inquirer in 6 years. And one person's like, "It was a shame when you left the city." I was like, I didn't leave the city. I'm at PHLY now. I was at the Athletic, right? For 4 years. Like, just because I wasn't on Comcast Sportsnet or on the Inquirer or in the Inquirer. But yeah, from like an age demographic, there's a lot of older people. Like the age profile, you have families, and then you have older people, right? You don't necessarily have like people in their mid-20s.
Well,
aren't going to like.
Thank God that they weren't aware of where you are now, because they would have seen you just bashing old people the last time you were on.
I bashed old people.
You came out with a very hard anti-old people take. He would have broken their hearts.
I talk about age limits for being a team president. Yeah, I did say that. That's true. Were you happy with the shows last week?
Yeah, they were fine.
Okay, good.
I mean, I'm never always happy with the show.
Okay.
I missed you.
I appreciate that. I miss doing the show. I liked my wife was getting a kick out of the Zackisms that EJ brought up because
EJ, yes.
she's literally heard all of them. And I gotta say, I need new material. If
I can't believe you subjected Emily. Not only did you watch on the cruise, that you subjected Emily to it.
No, well, that someone came up with an Instagram account for our show. There's like a PHLY Sickos Instagram account, and they made a graphic from EJ's appearance, and so I showed Emily that. No, she did not watch the PHLY Eagles show.
Thank God.
On the cruise. Yeah, she did not.
Good. All right, Zach.
So
what are you going to wear tonight?
Big night for you tonight. Big night for you.
Not really. I'm hoping to get some sleep.
Well, it's not mutually exclusive. This thing's from 7 to 10. You know, you'll probably work the bar afterwards. You can be back in your room by 11.
How dare you?
Well, that's a compliment. You know how to hang. You know how to hang. You know how to hang. Like, I admit, like, to kind of combine these two conversations, Emily will tell you this. I am not a good vacationer. Like, I can go away for a weekend, and that's fine. Anything beyond 3 days, my insecurity, I'm like cutting open a vein here. My insecurity is not working. It's falling behind, right? Is like, and so to me, working is like, I don't need a vacation from working. I enjoy working. I need a vacation to be with my family, but I love like doing the show anyways. Like I like talking to people about football, about the job, right? But I try when I go to these things, I have to like restrain myself from just like, so what do you think about the right guard situation, right? Like, because that's kind of the way I am wired. But you enjoy to hang, man. You're
ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Are you going wine tonight? Are you going hard liquor? What's your game plan tonight?
As you take a sip of water, I don't know. Maybe I'll go ginger ale.
No, not you. You're gonna enjoy this tonight.
I haven't decided. I might be driving. I don't know.
True. Okay. Yeah, the.
What are you gonna wear? Are you gonna go jacket? Are you gonna go jacket tonight?
Yeah. I'm gonna go jacket, but I might go jacket t-shirt. Thinking about that.
Really?
What? What? You don't like that? It's something Emily's been trying to push me on, going more t-shirt under the jacket.
Interesting.
Do you frown upon that look? That's not a look far.
I don't dare disagree with Emily's fashion advice.
With Emily's fashion, yeah. I see fire getting into the jacket t-shirt is certainly a look. Is that a bad look? No,
to me it connotes tech monorail salesman.
Tech monorail salesman? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Elaborate on that.
You're trying to be big tech, and you're selling me something that doesn't help me in any way, and you're trying to make money. But I think I think Emily knows your fashion better than anybody else, and if that's her advice, then I would follow her advice.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's it's something I should
take
like
a white tee, a black tee,
like a black tee,
a PHLY tee.
No, not a graphic tee. Like a nice, you wouldn't do that. Like a nice, fresh, crisp tee. But I could go. I would go button down. She wants me to embrace more of the casual look.
Listen, she's the boss.
She is. I agree with that. But I will reconsider that. Yeah, I will reconsider that.
Okay, we'll save the
What are you wearing
for tomorrow's show?
Yeah, what are you going tonight? What are you wearing?
Well, I'm gonna go button down, but I haven't decided. I guess I'll bring a jacket, but I don't really want to wear a jacket.
No.
Yeah.
What kind of jacket did you bring?
I'll get it.
Okay. Look at this. This is riveting for the audio listeners right now.
It's kind of like a dark
that brown,
grayish, brownish,
okay,
neutral jacket. Yeah.
all right.
I don't know.
Well, you'll kill it no matter what, man. Yeah, the man makes the clothes, right?
No pants, that's for sure.
Don't say that. You gotta wear pants.
Well, chaps, maybe.
You had shorts today. You
I went
had
shorts
your
today.
resort. Yeah, you had resort casual.
No, I didn't have resort casual. Resort casual would mean like a bathing suit and flip flops. I went a polo and shorts.
Okay.
And sneakers.
Yeah, you looked like you were in your resort attire today.
No, I did not. I looked like I was in Florida.
I was going to go jacket today. Honestly, I'm going jacket tomorrow.
That would have been Johnny Tryhard.
Why?
Come on.
No, don't, because I'm planning on wearing a jacket tomorrow. It's Johnny Tryhard.
Because it's Jeffrey. Because it's like you got to dress up for the owner talking.
No, I'm talking to Nick. I'm talking to Jeffrey. I'm talking like, yeah, you want to be presentable. You want to, that I was going to go today. The problem is this: I didn't know where we were going to do the show today, and I didn't want to have the same jacket on for 14 hours. Right? That would have been because I got dressed this morning at 6. It's actually more than 14 hours. So if I get home tonight at 11 or get back tonight at 11, right? I mean, you're looking at that's what, 17 hours, 6 to 11. I didn't want to wear the same thing for 17 hours. So I didn't go jacket today. So I'm going to change. But tomorrow's not a 17-hour day.
Yeah, this is real blue collar stuff.
Yeah, this is great. This is great podcasting too, man. Right.
This is what overtime is for.
This is what overtime is for. Fair enough.
All right.
So you can find out. So please be a diehard for the top 100 for Fran's Draft Guide. But also, I will have a piece up today on what Howie Roseman said.
And tomorrow, we talk to Nick Sirianni in the morning and Jeffrey Lurie in the afternoon. Most likely, we will be doing the show in between those two things, and you'll have to tune into Wednesday's show to find out the thoughts from Jeffrey Lurie. But maybe we'll do we'll see how it all pans out. We don't know yet what time Jeffrey's going to speak.
Yep.
Okay. I guess that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast, live from not quite Palm Beach. Zach Berman, Bo Wulf. Thank you, Brenna, for producing the show today. Back tomorrow at 2:00. And as always, we love you.